Okay, today is the 1st of August 2009, and we come to a new Samyutta, number 20th chapter of the Samyutta Nikaya called Opamma-samyutta. This Opamma means simile, and this word Opamma is Pali. You see our Malay word is Umpama. Umpama probably that's derived from the Sanskrit. It's the same meaning. 20.1. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There the Blessed One said this: Monks, just as all the rafters of a big house lead to the roof beam and converge upon the roof peak, and all are removed when the roof peak is removed, so too all unwholesome states are rooted in ignorance and converge upon ignorance, and all are uprooted when ignorance is uprooted. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will dwell diligently, thus should you train yourselves. See another sutta. So, the Buddha is saying, all unwholesome states and all evil karma that we do, it's all because of ignorance. People who don't know the Dhamma, they do evil deeds and suffer for it later. So it's very important to remove ignorance by learning the Dhamma. And the Dhamma means the original suttas, discourses of the Buddha in the Nikayas. 20.3 at Savatthi. Monks, just as it is easy for burglars to assail those families that have many women and few men, so too it is easy for non-human beings to assail a monk who has not developed and cultivated, here it says, liberation of mind by loving kindness. But I think probably a better translation is liberation of loving kindness by the mind, or more correctly, radiation of loving kindness by the mind. Just as it is difficult for burglars to assail those families that have few women and many men, so too it is difficult for non-human beings to assail a bhikkhu, a monk who has developed and cultivated a radiation of loving kindness by mind. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate radiation of loving kindness by mind. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus should you train yourselves. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says, if a monk or even anybody does not develop loving kindness, metta, radiation of loving kindness by the mind, that means your mind has to be quite strong, and so that you can radiate loving kindness. So if you are able to do that, then it's difficult for ghosts and devas, non-human beings, to assail a monk. Assail a monk means like to attack a monk. So elsewhere, somewhere else, the Buddha says that there are a lot of unseen beings around us, and if we develop metta, loving kindness, then that is our protection. They will not harm us. Firstly, those beings are deviant beings, like ghosts and all that. Their minds are very disturbed. They are very disturbed minds, very agitated minds. If a person can develop loving kindness to the extent that it can radiate it, that means the mind is very calm. Very calm. If your mind is very calm, then these beings, ghosts and all that, with agitated minds, they won't be able to come near you because you are a different frequency from them. So developing metta, loving kindness, is very good. 20.4 at Savatthi, the Buddha said, Monks, if someone were to give away 100 pots of food as charity in the morning, 100 pots of food as charity at noon, and 100 pots of food as charity in the evening, and if someone else were to develop radiation of loving kindness by mind, or develop a mind of loving kindness here, even for the time it takes to pull a cow's udder, either in the morning, at noon, or in the evening, This would be more fruitful than the former. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate radiation of loving kindness by mind. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus should you train yourselves. So the Buddha says, if we practice loving kindness, even for a short moment, it is more fruitful than doing a lot of charity. If someone does a lot of charity, but he has a lot of anger, of hatred, then his the merit or the blessings from that charity is not so great. But if he has a lot of loving kindness, even he does not give charity, it is more fruitful, more meritorious. 20.5 Monks, suppose there was a sharp-pointed spear, and a man would come along thinking, I will bend this sharp-pointed spear with my hand or fist, twist it out of shape, and twirl it around. What do you think, monks? Would it be possible for that man to do so? No, Venerable Sir. For what reason? Because it is not easy to bend back that sharp-pointed spear with one's hand or fist, to twist it out of shape, or to twirl it around. That man would only experience fatigue and vexation. So too monks, when a monk has developed and cultivated radiation of loving kindness by mind, made it a vehicle, made it a basis, stabilized it, exercised himself in it, and fully perfected it. If a non-human being thinks he can overthrow his mind, that non-human being would only experience fatigue and vexation. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate radiation of loving kindness by mind. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus should you train yourselves. That's the end of the sutta. So here again the Buddha is saying, if we can radiate loving kindness, then our mind is very strong, and a non-human being would not be able to overpower our mind. 20.6 at Savatthi, the Buddha said, monks, suppose there were 4 firm-bowed archers, trained, dexterous, experienced, and standing in each of the 4 directions. Then a man would come along thinking, I will catch the arrows shot by these 4 archers in each of the 4 directions before they reach the ground, and then I will bring them back. What do you think, monks? Would this be enough to say, that man is a speedster endowed with supreme speed? The monk said, Venerable Sir, even if he could catch the arrow shot by one archer before it reached the ground and could bring it back, that would be enough to say, that man is a speedster endowed with supreme speed. There is no need to speak about the arrow shot by all 4 archers. And the Buddha said, monks, as swift as that man is, still swifter are the sun and moon. As swift as that man is, and as swift as are the sun and moon, and as swift as are the deities that run before the sun and moon, the vital energies perish even more swiftly than that. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will dwell diligently, thus should you train yourselves. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says, this vital energy that I translate here the book says vital formations. The word is ayu sankara. Ayu is life. Sankara can be said to be conditioners, life conditioners. Life conditioners is our vitality, our vital energy. So the Buddha is saying, swifter than that man who can catch the arrows are the sun and the moon when they move in the sky. But swifter than the sun and the moon are the deities or the devas that fly before the sun and the moon. And faster than all of them is life passing by, one life after another lifetime. It's like a dream going by so fast. If we think about it, we think about our childhood. When we think about childhood, I think that it's just yesterday only I was a small boy or a small girl, 10 years old. And suddenly now I'm old already, white hairs on my head and all that. Not much time left. So, just like that. That's why when the Buddha recalled his many past lives, so many thousands of lives, so many world cycles, then he realized that he had been through so many stages of life, so many existences, all the different type of existences he had gone through, and he had been a world, universal monarch, a king that rules the whole world a few times, and that was among human beings the best life. And so he was a bit sentimental about it also when he thought about that life, which was so pleasant. He was so sentimental about it. Then when the Buddha was about to pass away, he purposely went to that spot where he used to be the king of the whole world, and he passed away there. And then Ananda asked him, Bhagavan, there are so many devotees in the cities to be very glad to see you. Why you come to this way out place to pass away? And the Buddha said, don't say this a way out place. Long time ago, there was a wheel turning king, this wheel turning monarch, king of the whole world, universal monarch. He said this was his capital. I said he used to be that king. So you consider actually life passes by very fast. That's why the Buddha says in the suttas that there are devas and devis whose lifespan is millions and millions and millions of years. But when it's time for them to die, and they think, oh, my life is so short, still haven't enjoyed enough. That's why the Buddha says life goes by so fast. 20.7 at Savatthi, Buddha said, monks, once in the past, the Dasarahas had a cattle drum called the Samana. When the Samana became cracked, the Dasarahas inserted another pack. Eventually, the time came when the Samana's original drumhead had disappeared, and only a collection of packs remained. So too monks, the same thing will happen with the monks in the future. And those discourses spoken by the Tathagata that are deep in meaning, supramundane, dealing with emptiness, are being recited. They will not be eager to listen to them, nor lend an ear to them, nor apply their minds to understand them, and they will not think those teachings should be studied and mastered. But when those discourses that are mere poetry, composed by poets, beautiful in words and phrases, created by outsiders, spoken by disciples, are being recited, they will be eager to listen to them, will lend an ear to them, will apply their minds to understand them, and they will think those teachings should be studied and mastered. In this way, monks, those discourses spoken by the Tathagata that are deep in meaning, supramundane, dealing with emptiness, will disappear. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. And those discourses spoken by the Tathagata that are deep in meaning, supramundane, dealing with emptiness, are being recited. We will be eager to listen to them, will lend an ear to them, will apply our minds to understand them, and we will think those teachings should be studied and mastered. Thus should you train yourselves. That's the end of the sutta. It's a very important sutta. The Buddha gave a warning in the future, just like the drum. When the drum starts to crack, they put a pack over it, and then later they put another pack. Eventually, the packs surround the drum, and you can't recognize the drum. You only see packs all around. So in the same way, the Buddha is saying, right now, the suttas are available. This is a true Dhamma. But in the future, disciples meaning later monks, disciples of the Buddha, later monks, they will write other books, which are beautiful sounding, interesting and all that. Then people will be interested in those instead of the suttas, the original discourses of the Buddha. And then the Dhamma becomes impure. Then the true Dhamma will not be recognized. People will think the Dhamma is what is in the commentaries, in the later books like the Mahayana Sutras, the Abhidhamma, the Jataka stories and all that. So then that will conceal the true Dhamma. So here the Buddha says, here it says created by outsiders, but the translation, the Pali Text Society, is not created by outsiders. It is alien. Alien, that means It has nothing to do with the Dhamma. That is outside the Dhamma. Those later books are outside the real Dhamma, and they are spoken by disciples. We know those later books, Abhidhamma and Visuddhimagga and Jataka stories and all that. Although there is some use in them, but unless you are familiar with the original teachings of the Buddha, then you may be led astray. You may be given wrong views. Like now, people think that jhanas, samadhi is not important. Vipassana is more important. This is totally contradictory to what the Buddha says. The Buddha always says that the jhanas are the footprints of the Buddha. In one of the suttas, the Buddha said, if a person wants to get enlightened, the various stages to attain enlightenment are the jhanas. Just like a coral tree flower blooming, various stages. So too, when a person progresses to enlightenment, he must go through the various stages of jhana. So the Buddha is saying that we should take the trouble to study the suttas that are deep in meaning, supramundane, transcending the world, dealing with emptiness. So this Buddha is telling us that we should put importance on the suttas, not in other books. Just like nowadays, a lot of people, instead of going to study the suttas, they can study all kinds of other later books. 20.8. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Vesali in the great wood in the hall with the peaked roof. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus. Monks, Venerable Sir, those monks replied. The Blessed One said, Monks, now the Lichavis dwell using blocks of wood as cushions. They are diligent and ardent in exercise. King Ajatasattu of Magadha, the Videhan's son, does not gain access to them. He does not get a hold on them. But in the future, the Lichavis will become delicate with soft and tender hands and feet. They will sleep until sunrise on soft beds with pillows of cotton wool. Then King Ajatasattu of Magadha will gain access to them. Then he will get a hold on them. Monks, now the monks dwell using blocks of wood as cushions. They are diligent and ardent in striving. Mara, the evil one, does not gain access to them. He does not get a hold on them. But in the future, the monks will become delicate, with soft and tender hands and feet. They will sleep until sunrise on soft beds, with pillows of cotton wool. Then Mara, the evil one, will gain access to them. He will get a hold on them. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. Using blocks of wood as cushions, you will dwell diligent and ardent in striving. Thus should you train yourselves. So here the Buddha is saying that just as the Lichavis, when they sleep, they use blocks of wood to sleep as cushions. So because it's not so comfortable, they can't sleep very long, and they get up early. But later, when they become luxurious, then they want to sleep on soft bed and soft pillows and all that. And then when they enjoy life too much, then King Ajatasattu, the enemy, the neighbor, will conquer their country, conquer them, overpower them. So in the same way, the Buddha is warning that monks, if they are ascetic, they strive hard, they don't sleep so much, they are not luxurious, then Mara cannot overpower them. But when the monks become luxurious, backslide and become to enjoy life too much, then they will be overcome by Mara, the evil one. So the Buddha says that monks should be diligent and always striving. 20.9. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Now on that occasion, a certain newly ordained monk was approaching families excessively. The other monks told him, the Venerable One should not approach families excessively. But when he was being admonished by them, he said, these elder monks think they can approach families, so why can't I? Stop here for a moment. So this new monk, he saw a lot of old monks, elder monks, going to visit lay people. So he thinks he also is entitled to visit the lay people frequently. Then a number of monks approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and reported this matter to the Blessed One. The Blessed One said, just now I forgot to say, the previous sutta, when it was mentioned Tathagata, that is one of the names of the Buddha, Tathagata. thus gone one. In Chinese they translate it as Ru Lai, thus come one. But the actual meaning is thus gone one. Buddha has gone and won't come back. Then the Buddha said, monks, once in the past there was a great lake in a forest with bull elephants dwelling in its vicinity. Those elephants would plunge into the lake, pull up lotus stalks with their trunks, and having washed them thoroughly, would chew them and swallow them free from mud. This increased their beauty and strength, and on that account they did not meet death or deadly suffering. Their young offspring, emulating those great bull elephants, would plunge into the lake and pull up lotus stalks with their trunks, but without washing them thoroughly, without chewing them, they would swallow them along with the mud. This did not increase their beauty and strength, and on that account they met death or deadly suffering. Stop here for a moment. So these big elephants, they are experienced. They jump into the pond and then they pluck the lotus stalks. They clean them before they eat them. But these silly young elephants, they didn't notice carefully. They tried to copycat the old elephants, and they just took up the lotus stalks and ate them with mud and everything. So they became very sick, or they died. So too monks, here the elder monks, dressed in the morning and taking bowl and robe, enter a village or town for alms. There they speak on the Dhamma, and the lay people show their confidence to them. They use their gains without being tied to them, uninfatuated with them, not blindly absorbed in them, seeing the danger in them and understanding the escape. This increases their beauty and strength, and on that account they do not meet death or deadly suffering. The newly ordained monks, emulating the elder monks, dressed in the morning and taking bowl and robe, enter a village or town for alms. There they speak on the Dhamma, and the lay people show their confidence to them. They use their gains while being tied to them, infatuated with them, blindly absorbed in them, not seeing the danger in them, and not understanding the escape. This does not increase their beauty and strength, and on that account they meet death or deadly suffering. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will use our gains without being tied to them, uninfatuated with them, not blindly absorbed in them, seeing the danger in them, and understanding the escape. Thus should you train yourselves. That's the end of the sutta. So here, this sutta is about young monks. They see older monks doing something, and they think they're entitled to it also. That's a problem. Sometimes new monks are a bit arrogant, so they think whatever the elder monks do, they also can copycat. And sometimes they don't ask for advice, they don't ask for permission, they just do as they like. So here, sometimes I see this also. So there is an example given, 20.10, Savati. Now on that occasion, a certain monk was socializing with families excessively. The other monks told him, just now I wanted to say, there is a Zen story about a Zen monk, and he was supposed to be a very experienced monk. So he had a lot of disciples, and he told his disciples to be very mindful, whatever they do, to do slowly, eat their food slowly, walk slowly, do everything slowly. So the disciples did that. But after some time they complained to him. They say, Master, you asked us to do everything slowly, but we see you do everything so fast. Then the Master said, how can you compare with me? What the Master is trying to say is that even though he does things fast, he is mindful because his mind is developed. He's mindful. He doesn't have to show that he is mindful. His mind is very sharp. Whereas these young monks, their minds are not trained, are not developed. So they think they have a right also to what their master does. They don't realize that their standard is different. 20.10 Savati. Now on that occasion, a certain monk was socializing with families excessively. The other monks told him, the Venerable One should not socialize with families excessively. But though he was admonished by them, he did not desist. Then a number of monks approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and reported this matter to the Blessed One. The Blessed One said, "Monks, once in the past, a cat stood by an alley or a drain or a rubbish bin, watching for a little mouse, thinking, when this little mouse comes out for food, right there I will grab it and eat it. Then that mouse came out for food, and the cat grabbed it and swallowed it hastily without chewing it. Then that little mouse ate the cat's intestines and mesentery, and on that account the cat met with death and deadly suffering." Stop here for a moment. So this mouse, because of greed, without chewing the rat, he swallowed it. Then the rat, seems that it was still alive, went into the intestines and the big intestines and started to chew there. This reminds me, about a year ago or something, we saw in the newspaper about anaconda, one of the big snakes in South America. So it swallowed alligator, crocodile. So it swallowed the crocodile, and the crocodile went into its body, and then the crocodile inside was half dead, and then he gave one final kick, and tore the skin of this anaconda. So the anaconda body pierced, the anaconda died. So both also died. This is a bit similar. Then the Buddha said, "So too monks. Here some monk dresses in the morning and taking bowl and robe enters a village or town for alms with body, speech and mind unguarded, without setting up mindfulness, unrestrained in his sense faculties. He sees women there, lightly clad or lightly attired, and lust invades his mind. With his mind invaded by lust, he meets death or deadly suffering. For this, monks, is death in the Noble One's discipline, that one gives up the training and returns to the lower life, that means disrobes. This is deadly suffering, that one commits a certain defiled offense of a kind that allows for rehabilitation, that means a sangha disease. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will enter a village or town for alms, with body, speech and mind guarded, with mindfulness set up, restrained in our sense faculties. Thus should you train yourselves." That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says that when a monk goes on alms round, he has to guard his senses and be very mindful. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, you have to be equanimous. Otherwise, like here, some monks, they see some women and then they have lustful thoughts. But then in our alms round, we seldom see that. But if you are not mindful, then the common thing is that you will step on shit. Dog shit, or you will step on glass. So that will teach you to be mindful.